Black box methods is suitable for functionality-based testing without any internal knowledge of a software system. Black box testing conducts tests against the end user's external specifications. One of the common black box methods is equivalence partitioning. Identify equivalence classes. For inputs with a range of values, define one valid equivalence class within and two invalid equivalence classes outside the range. Example, month larger than or equal 1 and less than or equal 12. We have month equal 4, which is within the range 1 to 12, 0 and 14, which are outside the range 1 to 12. For inputs with a set of valid values, define a valid equivalence class within an invalid equivalence class outside the set. Example, ages belongs to the set 18 and 20. We have ages 18, which belongs to the set 18 and 20, and ages equal 22, which does not belong to the set 18, 20. If the system handles each valid input differently, define one valid equivalence class per valid input. Example, John belongs to the set John, Steve, etc. This is team number 1. And Smith belongs to the set Smith, etc. This is team number 2. If there is a reason to believe that the program handles each valid input differently, then define one valid equivalence class per valid input. An example for that, fiction and non-fiction are all but different catalogs. In a must-be situation, define one valid equivalence class and one invalid equivalence class. Example, a password starts with a number followed by 8 characters. We have 4A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. This is a correct password. And on the other hand, we have T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. This is an incorrect password. If an equivalence class is not handled in an identical manner by the program, subdivide the equivalence class into smaller equivalence classes. An example for that, positive integers. Here we have 20, 21, 07, 11. 3 laws of test-driven development. The first law, you are not allowed to write any production code unless it is to make a failing unit test pass. You must begin by writing a unit test for the functionality that you intend to write. The second law, you are not allowed to write any more of a unit test than is sufficient to fail, and compilation failures are failures. As soon as the unit test code fails to compile or fails an assertion, you must stop and write production code. The third law, you are not allowed to write any more production code that is sufficient to pass the one failing unit test. You can only write the production code that makes the test compile or pass and no more. Conducting test-driven development (TDD) for the login page. Using a black box testing technique to develop a test suite for a login page. In these examples, I chose 4 of the test cases to derive software development, and make sure to include representation variation in equivalent classes for both valid and invalid inputs. The login page requires the user to provide both username and password. The username input is divided into wrong and correct usernames. The software needs to treat them differently, as software prompt different messages when a user provides a wrong username or leaves the username blank. The class of wrong username is divided further. A similar process takes place for the password input. When running testing, make sure that all test methods are executed, as modifying software may introduce new error. The first one here is the first test method. We have correct username and correct password. In the second one, test method number 2, we have correct username and wrong password. In the third one, test method number 3, wrong username and correct password. And in the last one, the fourth one, test method number 4, wrong username and wrong password.